We are back with episode 11 of season 4 of We Do a Little Pod. And before we jump in, I want to highlight some big news we announced earlier this season. Season 4 is officially powered by Arbitrum, and our content is now redistributed across Rug Radio and Decrypt's platforms. Annie and I have been massive fans of Arbitrum since they launched, and both of us invested in Off-Chain Labs' Series B back in 2021. This is a full circle moment for us, and we couldn't be happier to partner with Arbitrum for this season. If you've never felt the frictionless transactions at lightning speeds on the world's most decentralized L2, what are you waiting for? Head on over to portal.arbitrum.io to check out their growing ecosystem where you can explore 600 plus apps and even participate in missions to earn points. Without further ado, let's dive into this week's episode. In this week's episode, we sit down with our good friend and co-founder of Shillr, Funghibull. Funghi is one of our favorite collectors, builders, and just overall people in the space. We dive into Funghi's background playing rugby, going to medical school in Scotland, 10-gram mushroom trips, finding punks, forming Shillr, and so much more. As always, this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Andy, Dees, and guests may be invested in companies or tokens talked about on this pod.
This is Andy. Yeah, I'm Dees.
GM. We are back again with another episode of We Do a Little Pod here in New York City during NFT NYC 2024. We are here with a very special guest. This has been a long time coming. We should have had you on the pod 3 years ago, but we technically had you as a co-host on the pod. Now you're here as a guest. We're here with Funghibull, the co-founder of Shillr, one of the biggest vibers and art patrons we know. Just genuinely good dude. Funghi, how are you doing on this beautiful rainy day out here in New York?
I'm doing very well, man. Vibing. Feels good to be back and stoked to hang out with you guys.
Yeah, it's nice to talk to you, man. It's been, a long time coming. Like I just said, we've been friends for a long time. Try to get each other on the pod. It's been like, hey, busy doing this thing. It's nice that we're here a little early in the week now before everything kind of goes crazy. Yeah, I guess I want to start with, I want to get to know the man behind Funghi. I want to get to know more of how you grew up, more of what you were doing before crypto, more of the backstory, the origin story. So if you don't mind me asking, like, what area did you grow up in?
So I grew up on the west coast of Canada, in like a pretty small town, mostly like just a truck stop that proliferated somehow. But it was a vibe. Like just the only thing you could really do was go to the beach or like go for a hike or like drive an hour to the closest city to watch a movie or something as a kid. Yeah.
When you were a kid, were you into art at all? Do you remember?
I loved I used to make like a lot of like macaroni collages and like loved like doodling and stuff. Like I remember getting a Scholastic book fair, like this is how you draw Marvel superheroes and like loving that, but I wasn't any good at it. Like I look at those and I'm like, oh yeah. Like,
do you still have them today?
I think I do. Yeah. I think I have them in a box at my parents' house.
My mom kept all my old creations, and at the time I was like, oh, it's weird, why are you keeping these? And then now when I go back home and look at them, it's like kind of cool.
It is cool.
It's like, oh my god, my head was, I was drawing fucking like leprechauns in Las Vegas, like climbing buildings and shit when I was in second grade. I'm like, where did these ideas come from? But growing up out in Western Canada, kind of in the, not wilderness, but in the sticks.
In the sticks, yeah.
Where did you go to college, and did you move far away from home?
Yeah, so I had it like in my head that I wanted to be a doctor when I was like 13.
Classic.
I was like, I'm going to be a doctor. The few like, I don't know, people that I looked up to, I guess, in like high school, and they had gone on to pursue medicine, and I thought just like, I don't know, could be a good move. Was good at all of the sciences and was doing well in school, and just generally like enjoyed helping people. Mm-hmm. So it kind of made sense. at the time. And then I ended up going to Europe to go to school.
I didn't know you went to school in Europe.
Yeah, well, I guess technically the UK now.
That's just Europe.
Yeah.
To us
Not
Americans,
anymore, but to me, it's
that's
Yeah.
Europe.
But yeah, I went to school in Scotland because you could go straight into any professional degree right out of high school. You just had to like fly out there to interview and managed to get in, and then did that for a year, which was crazy. Like over there, your second week, you're like dissecting cadavers. Like there's no pre-med degree. It's just like
You're in it.
if your grades are good and you pass our like crazy interview process, like you're in it and you're studying like the medical sciences immediately. They condense like it's not a full pre-med degree, but in 2 semesters you cover like every field of medicine or every field of medical science. And then that didn't work out. so we did a little pivoting after.
Did you, after doing it, just realize you didn't enjoy it as much as you thought you did or thought you would? Or what was the impetus for not pursuing it more?
I just like realized that I didn't want it, like I wanted the idea of it, but I didn't want the actual life that went along with it. All of the like fellow students in my first year, they were putting in the hours. Like they had all like been shadowing doctors like all through high school, which is kind of like the UK. Like it's how they set you up. Like when you're 15, they ask you what you want to do. If you want to go to trades, they set you up with like a carpenter or an electrician or a plumber. If you want to be a lawyer, you start like shadowing a lawyer, and you're like like a junior, probably not useful at all, paralegal. If you want to be a doctor, you like start shadowing a doctor like a couple times a week.
They put you in the trenches early.
Yeah, because
so that you could see like, do you really want to do this shit, or do you just think you want to do it?
And then you only do academic courses that support it. So you like stop doing math, you stop doing English, you stop doing all of that shit, and you just like do chemistry and biology.
So what made you realize after a year that you're like, I can't do this?
Well, I failed an exam. That was definitely that was the writing on the wall. Like you had to get 80% to pass.
Okay.
Which
It's
is
pass fail. You get over an 80.
You're
pass.
good. Yeah. And I got like 77.
Fuck.
And this was like a multiple choice test where it was like I think like a quarter of the questions were like A through like L or something. And if you got them wrong, you got points deducted. So you had to like make the call of like,
do I answer this?
Do I answer this? Or like, and in high school, I think like I was good at intuiting that. So I was really good at like A, cramming, and then B, like guessing. Like, yeah.
Because there's no point in high school. If you guessed wrong, it didn't hurt you.
Yeah. Aside from like AP courses, I think, that was the only course I did that were kind of similar, but even those were like, they're like, it's hard. It's A through like E or something like that.
1 in 5 chance.
Yeah, like, 20%.
I'll take those odds every day. Yeah.
I'll mint NFTs were way worse odds.
Yeah.
What so when you failed, was there any redemption, or was it just like straight up, hey, it's over, I'm going home, we're flying back? Or was it like, oh, I can do this again, and then
I could do it again, but I'd have to redo the whole year.
Holy shit.
And
so one test, 3%.
Yeah.
Redo
and
the
it
whole year.
was like $55,000 per year. And my parents are like, not like, we've never been in like a really bad financial situation, but they took out a line of credit, like loan, to help me go. And it like, even paying for the entire amount was like, this might be tricky. Like we might have to get really creative here. So yeah, I realized I was like, if I don't absolutely know that I want to do this, like, first of all, it's probably a little bit degenerate of me to just be like, yeah, fuck, I'll go pay $55,000 into a thing that I like haven't really been like putting the extra time into. I hadn't been like meeting with doctors and like all of that.
I feel like
stuff.
that's part of like just the like fucked up relationship that high school kids have with college and like higher education in general, where it's become this thing. Thankfully, I think it's changing. But when we were all in high school, I feel like it was this thing where it was like, you are a failure if you don't go to college.
100%.
Like, you have somehow completely destroyed your family's legacy. And like, you have no idea what you want to do and you're still figuring things out. Doesn't matter. You got to go. You got to just do it and you'll figure it out there. But you got to pay a lot of fucking money while you
It was
figure
either
it
that
out.
or go to the military.
Yeah.
It was like, if you don't know what you want to do in college, just go to a recruiter.
Yeah.
Join a branch of the military. I was like, I definitely don't want to do that. Like, my dad did that. My grandpa did that. My great grandpa did that. I'm chilling. Like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I think I had a similar experience where I failed freshman year of college, had a 1.8 GPA, had to go to my dad and be like, hey, remember how I told you this year was going really well? Well, I might have lied a little bit and it's not going well at all. And I had to take out more loans. And that was tough. But it wasn't quite 50K because the state school is like,
Yeah.
I don't remember. I think Ohio State in-state tuition was like 12 grand a year.
Yeah. In-state public
It was like
schools
5
were
or
like,
6K a
yeah, because
semester.
for me it was Rutgers. That was like the in-state public school. And
But it was
like,
healthy. When you were in Scotland, what were your hobbies? Because you weren't job shadowing teachers and doctors. What was the vibe like?
It was fun. Like, yeah, like I was partying a lot for sure.
Yeah.
I was playing rugby for the first little bit.
Shit.
And besides that, like the course was like, it wasn't like a typical university where you get given, like, you choose your courses and you do a schedule. You're just like, hey, if you're doing this, it's 8 a.m. till 4:30 p.m. every day or 5 days a week.
It's a job.
Yeah, exactly. And then like you should be studying on the weekends. So I wasn't studying all of the weekends. I was like just vibing and going to like concerts in Edinburgh and like, yeah, just hanging out.
What was your favorite thing about Scotland? Because I've never been there.
The people are amazing. Like the people are like really fun, really friendly, like quite outgoing. And just in the UK and like, yeah, there's so much history there. Like you go to a pub where like the steps that you walk down to get into the bar are like stone, but footsteps are worn into them because the pub was built in like the 1300s. So like that was really cool. And then like surprisingly, a lot of people might not think about it, but the outdoors are like beautiful. Like you go into like northern Scotland and like it's just gorgeous, like so stunning.
Seeing the coast pics with like the giant cliffs, looks crazy. Some of those golf courses that are like kind of on the cliffs.
Those are sick.
Yeah,
that was something. The like history and like historical stuff was something. So Allie lived in London for cumulatively she's lived there for like a year, but it was 2 different like stints. And so I've spent a decent amount of time there. I haven't been to Scotland, but that was like something that we definitely experienced, is like going to a pub and being like, wow, this place is like older than the entire country that we live in. Like there is nothing in America that is as old as this. And like the people as well, I think that was something where I think it's a lot like New York in that they're like, you know, they don't really give a shit about you, but if you want to talk to them, they'll talk to you at a bar or something. And
for sure,
they were nice.
And like every city there is like, just like any other country is like quite different, but the accent changes are so pronounced. So you go to like Edinburgh to Glasgow and just totally different cultures, like totally different vibes. The people sound entirely different. And yeah, it's pretty wild. I think Glasgow, the year I moved there, or the year I moved to Scotland, it got voted the nicest city in Europe and the city you're most likely to get stabbed in. At the
nice dichotomy.
Yeah, it's got a bit of everything, you know.
Got everything you want. Did you go to any like music festivals while you were in Scotland?
I went to like a few really fun concerts. No festivals. I did go to a lot of rugby games though. Like in Edinburgh, I would go to watch like, I think I saw like South Africa, Scotland, and Wales, Scotland, and England, Scotland. Like just would try to go to like.
Did you like rugby before you got to the
Yeah,
UK?
I played a lot, like from when I was like 12, I guess, and got pretty
I didn't even know that was
serious.
like a thing in Canada.
It's pretty big. Yeah, like the Canadian team usually like does very well in the World Cup and in the sevens. So yeah, I was playing like pretty competitively, and just like had an injury. Came pretty close to like playing for the national team.
Oh, shit.
But I broke my back when I was like 17.
Jesus. Do you still have any like issues from that? Or is
Yeah,
it
I
pretty
had
healed?
like right away I had like sciatica because I broke like a piece of my spine and then slipped 2 discs. And so like in high school had sciatica, and then I was playing in first year university, and then one of the practices, like as I was running, I just couldn't feel my right leg all of a sudden. And I was like, we're so done. Like it's over. Like that, like pain is like one thing, but when you just like lose sensation, you're like, all right, this kind of seems like kind of paralysis vibes. Like I think,
Did the injury happen while you were playing or?
yeah. It was like, if you know rugby, like when someone gets tackled, you have to put the ball backwards. And then your team can kind of like go over top of you.
Yeah.
And it creates what's called a ruck. And the other team can try and like bowl your team over to get to the ball. So I was protecting the ball. And you can like, you typically like grab a teammate like as they're down. They're not allowed to move or hold on to the ball. And then so as I was just like bent over in like a V, someone just fucking like took me out like shoulder to the bottom of my spine at like full pace, and I was just like wrecked. Yeah.
I'm stretching just thinking about it.
I was not good, but like I had a similar injury playing football in high school where I got a really bad concussion and my entire left side of my body went numb. And I was like, oh, this is weird. Well, like, so if I got hit once and I was like,
Go back on the
my
field.
body was like kind of tingly and I was like, I'll shake it off. I'm fine. And then it happened again. And my whole left side of my body, I couldn't feel for a second. And I was like, I think I'm done with football. Like, I don't need to do this. I'm not going to make a career for myself playing football. So I definitely get that sentiment.
The concussions are scary, man. Like I played one game. We played like a touring Scotland team. And I think I was like 15. I was like grade 10. And all of our seniors were gone. And they were like, hey, do you want to start in this game? And I was like, fuck yeah.
Yeah,
like,
of course I do.
Of course. Like, let's go. And I was told in the first 5 minutes, I got just destroyed. Like, just tackled so hard, straight to the head, pretty much. And then I just remember at halftime, standing in the shade, not realizing it was halftime, being like, why are we in the shade? And someone was like, it's halftime. And I was like, oh, so I've been playing. And they're like, yeah, are you good? And I was like, I think so. And so I just like went and played the rest of the game. And then the next like 2 weeks, memories were very spotty.
Yeah.
Like,
It's such a weird sensation.
Yeah.
Like I've never had anything like it. But I remember like after that, reading a book for class and then going to take a quiz and having to go up to my teacher and being like, sorry, I did this. I don't remember a single thing that I read. Like I cannot answer a single question on this. I couldn't tell you anything about the book.
yeah, it's like you're just not supposed to get hit in the head that hard. You know? Like
No.
it's just not supposed to happen. Yeah.
So you're coming back from Scotland and you're realizing, hey, maybe I'm not going to do this medical thing. What did you do when you came home? Like what was that like?
Got very depressed.
Yeah.
Smoked a lot of weed. And I think I started working in a factory.
Okay.
Because there was like where I lived, there's like I had to move back with my parents.
Yeah, not much job opportunity.
There was no job opportunities. At first I moved in with a friend. That didn't go well.
What went wrong?
I took I didn't get a job quickly.
Okay.
So I was like interviewing for stuff and not really trying, if I'm being honest. Like, I think I was just like bummed out, you know?
Depressed
it was like,
from...
I went from like a 5-year track of like then being a GP to like applying for like sales jobs at fucking car dealerships and like in like a few months. Round trip.
Feels like a
so
fall from
hard.
grace.
Yeah. And then
trip.
one day we decided to like eat mushrooms, and it was just a Tuesday, and I just ate like, I think it was 10 grams of mushrooms.
Holy shit.
And
Was it something that you had been already doing in your life, or was this like early on experience?
Yeah, I had done it. Like, I had done mushrooms, I think the first time when I was like 17, had a really like profound experience. Had done it maybe 5 times like after that, or before this particular occasion. And then, but it had always been like, I'd usually take like 2 grams, which is still like a lot. Like, you're like full sending it at that point.
Yeah, 10 is insane. I can't imagine.
And it was also a mistake. Like,
If we can pause for 1 minute, we're going to do a little electricity.
So you're taking 10 grams of mushrooms at the apartment, moving back after Scotland.
yeah. So
What drove you to take 10 grams?
So yeah, like probably depression and boredom to begin with, of like, it's a Tuesday, why not eat mushrooms?
Yes. We've been there.
You know, late afternoon, it was a sunny day. We lived right next to a park. Was just thinking like, why don't we just have a solid dose, go to the park,
10 grams.
and we were going to split it. And we didn't know it was 10 grams.
Didn't weigh it?
We thought it was, no, we didn't have the scale out. We bought a quarter. And so we were like, oh, this is like 7.5
Total.
That's total 3.75 each. It'll be like our biggest individual doses to date, but like manageable. Like it'll be an experience, like an intense one. And I think part of me was also like, and maybe this is just explaining, you know, behavior or whatever, but I think part of me was like, I need a big mental shift right now. Like, I need something to like kick me out of this. Cause I was just like working construction at the time. Just, like not having a good time.
No. Physically working your body for 10
and was
plus
like,
hours
I don't know what else I want to do if it's not medicine. Like, what the fuck? Like, maybe I go do a pre-med degree, like really trying to figure it out. And like, how do I tackle this like debt as well that I've got?
You got 50 plus grand of debt.
Yeah. So like, anyways, I think we got like a couple of like fucking like quarter pounders or something. And we were just going to like break up the mushrooms onto these.
Like McDonald's quarter pounders.
Just like we went to McDonald's, like
just a mushroom and cheese burger. Like nothing.
Yeah, nothing out of the ordinary. And then, so I like, my friend was like, yeah, I'm going to go break it up and split it. Came over with my half. I put it on the burger, ate it, on like the last half of the burger or something. And then it was like, I remember thinking at the time, like, damn, this is like, must be big mushrooms.
This
or
is a
like,
lot.
Yeah, these must be like really like low density mushrooms or something to be only 3.75 grams. And then I finish it, and he comes over, and I'm like, yo, so you ate yours? He's like, no, dude, like, sorry, I should have told you. I decided not to do mushrooms today. And I was like, oh, what about your half? He was like, oh, I just broke it up and put all of it on the plate or bowl or whatever. And
This is like a bad friend.
This guy fucked you.
he was just like, I don't know, like he was like, it wasn't great, but like he didn't mean, you know, he was just stoned on a Tuesday being like, yeah, not feeling the mushrooms, like
Left them on the plate. You didn't eat them all, bro, did you?
Yeah, exactly. And then, so I was like, fuck, like, this isn't very good, but like, okay, like, if you've done mushrooms, you know, like, once you do them, you
The
can't
only way
undo
out is
them.
through.
Exactly. So, and then he's like inviting some friends over, by the way. And I was like, oh God, this is escalating. His friends arrive, and then they decide they want to go to a mall. And I was like, well, I can't fucking stay here by myself and be on like 7.5 grams of mushrooms. And so I went with them. And like, as we're driving, I'm like goldfish memory, like every minute or so, who knows, forgetting like what we're doing, where we're going, how I got there kind of vibe. Not great. Not
Not good.
you know, like normally it's like uncomfortable when mushrooms kick in and you're like, feel this like sense of like the come up where you get a little queasy, a little butterflies, and you're like, all right, like better say yes to this or like I'm going to have a bad time.
It's like you're going up a roller coaster and it's going tick, 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 tick.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, we're on the ride.
Yeah, exactly. And so we get there and I was just like, I'm along for the ride. Like it literally and figuratively. And it was not the place to be.
No, a mall
was
sounds
packed.
horrible.
They were like, yeah, go order some food. I went to go order like poutine or something like that. Like exactly the kind of food you want when you've
Nice fries covered in gravy.
and cheese. Like, but it was just like, I think I was just like going for comfort or something. Like, I don't know. Go to order, this was like before like tap to pay.
Yeah.
So
you gotta get cash out.
I had to do my PIN. And I remember just like laughing, being like, PIN? I can't remember that. I should just try some numbers. And just let the intuition take over.
Yeah. Did you get it?
No. So like I like just put in like the first four numbers I could think of.
6-9.
And like the woman's like, sir, like this isn't working. And I was like, oh, like guess it's not working. Left, went back to the table. They were like, you forgot your food. And I was like, oh right, my food. Go back to order. Did this like 4 times. And my friends are just like laughing.
They're not on mushrooms.
They're not. They're very sober. Maybe very stoned, but like stoned at most. And they're like, all right, we got to get this guy like home, and proceeded to just have like a hellish trip. Like I was like, I'd like fall asleep for a moment. And in that moment, we were like in the living room watching sports news or something. Again, maybe not the best content to be consuming.
Were you getting like rainbow visuals when you were watching sports news?
And,
Like it was like a
couldn't-
strobing spectrum of light.
Lost the ability to perceive faces. So I couldn't see like people's like facial features, which was crazy. It looked like everyone just had like a blurry blank face, which wasn't that great. And then as I would like fall asleep for a minute, it was like my subconscious would project a lucid dream over top of the existing environment. So the TV would keep playing, friends were still there, but the TV was now playing my stream of consciousness. So it was like, today on the news, like, Funghi's fucked. Like, everything's wrong. And, like, there's no way out of this. Like, you know, like...
We're in hell.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like, because I was, like, not fully conscious, time wasn't the same. So, like, as this would happen, it would feel like I'd be sitting there for, like, a few hours at a time. But it would only be, like, 10 minutes, maybe.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, just
feels like you lived in eternity.
Yeah, it felt like the trip took like a year. Like it was crazy.
Do you remember when it climaxed and you realized you were coming down?
Okay, so yeah, it climaxed. Yeah, this is bad. Like this is like terrible PR, personal PR. But it climaxed when I guess like my face went really like pale and my pupils were just like all encompassing, like just
black holes.
I was just looked like a creature. And these guys who were like, I didn't know, started like coming over to me and be like, hey, are you okay? I couldn't see their facial features. And then I hallucinated that like my laptop was like something else, like it was like on fire. So like, I don't know, like it, like, but I threw it. Pretty
Get
new.
this shit away from me.
Yeah, threw it, just hucked it, really whipped it, like stuck in the wall. I like hucked it like a frisbee. Came close to hitting one of these guys, which would have been bad. And it was already bad. Would have been worse. And like smashed my like relatively new like I had never owned like a laptop. My parents were like, "Hey, you're going to school, like you need a good computer, like here you go, like you know, like please like make sure it's like take care of it and all this stuff."
It's in the wall.
It's in the wall and it's completely shattered. And then I think I like ran out of the house. And something about that process woke me up. Like I think it just like crescendoed.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just like kind of snapped out of it. And I remember just standing outside of the house, and it probably like hours had passed, like since this started, like 6 hours or something.
Yeah, that's a.
And I just saw like kids playing in the park and like people going on jogs, and it was beautiful outside. And I just realized, I was like, oh, I'm like a crazy man right now. Like this, like I like imagine myself from the perspective of like a child, like playing in the park. It was like, that's not good. Like this isn't a good look right now. I need to really like check myself.
Inside.
And yeah, went back inside and was just like, whoa, like guys, my bad. Like that was not chill.
That was not chill. My laptop's in the wall.
Yeah, and
when you guys are in IT, I could really use some help.
Yeah, and at that point, I was like, I just like it hit me like, I need to leave this house because the people here, like, they're on their path. Like, they're going to university or college, and they're like can afford to just smoke weed and like chill, and I need to figure my shit out. And like this was a crazy wake up call where like, you know, I was like had casually taken mushrooms before, but it was always like when I was camping, like when I was with friends in a safe
a couple
space,
grams,
and
not a hero dose.
yeah, and like wasn't like a like drug user or anything. So this was like really out of character behavior. And it was on a Tuesday, you know, like just a random Tuesday. And so, yeah, I ended up like moving out like the next day. I was like, hey, dude, like I got to fucking go.
The next day. You were so sober. You're like, this is horrible.
Yeah.
Did you ever say to him, like, also really wish you had told me that you weren't going to eat the mushrooms before?
We talked about it later. And he's like one of the nicest guys. Like, yeah, there's no, we were both like 19 or 20.
You knew when you were eating. I'm like, this is kind of a lot.
Yeah, I should have known. And I think like maybe I did know. Maybe I was like, this is way more than half or than like
way more than an eighth.
Yeah, way more than an eighth. Like and yeah, I just like that was the wake up call. And I was like, I gotta like figure my shit out after that.
And did you have a moment during that trip where you felt like you died, or like the ego death component of it?
Yeah, so there was a moment where, I mean, it was kind of like part of this hallucination.
Assuming it was after the laptop was thrown in the wall.
Yeah, because I think it was right before that. Or yeah, like it's tough to say.
Close.
It was like around the same time where I like went to the bathroom to like have a shower, and I think like I don't know if it was like my blood pressure or what. I know mushrooms can like lower your blood pressure.
Yeah.
But I felt like I was gonna faint, so I just like laid down, and I started like really hallucinating, and I had this image, like waking dream, that I was in a mental institution, and doctors were like I think he's finally waking up.
Checking on you.
I think he's gonna wake up. Like, I think he's gonna be okay. And like had this like weird, like, I don't know, it's like a very like hard to explain experience, but had almost like imagined as like, what if this happened ages ago and I've been in a care facility since, and I am now by like in my dream of this, which I was like, didn't believe this, but I was like trying to make sense of it. I was like, what if this is actually a dream that I'm having while in an institution where I went to get better from this experience? So like I did it again to myself in a dream, if like almost like an inception moment, like relived it. And by taking this dosage of like dream mushrooms, I woke myself up in like real life. And as terrifying as that sounds, there was something like about that concept of waking up. Like, I think, like, I just remember hearing this, like, I think he's waking up. And it was probably like the fucking guys outside of the bathroom. Like,
he's been in there for a while.
He's been in there for a while. Like,
and they opened the door like, oh fuck, he's asleep on the floor.
Asleep. Like, I think he's waking. Like, it was probably like something like, you know, logical-ish.
But it was actually a psychiatric doctor looking at you.
Yeah, and like I remember just having this profound feeling of like, what if I wake up in this moment? Like, what if like I like in this version of reality I'm imagining I'm regaining my like life, you know, like I'm like regaining what I should be and where I should be going. Like, yeah. And like,
you had such clarity that like the next day you left the house.
Yeah,
like,
I literally like called my
speaks to
parents, told them what happened, was like, we're going to have to pay a drywall bill. Like, I'll explain later.
I might need a new laptop again.
Yeah, like, yeah.
Don't kill me.
And yeah, like made like pretty swift like changes after that. Like didn't smoke weed or eat mushrooms for like a year. I was like, I'm going to just give myself a year of like sobriety or whatever. Yeah, ended up like changing things up quite a lot. Yeah.
So what happened after you left the house?
So long story short, like I worked a couple of jobs. Again,
did you go back home with your family?
Back home. Yeah, I went to stay with my parents again, and I was working in like, I think it was like a fireplace factory. So I was like on the production line, putting together these like wooden fireplaces and gas fireplaces, and like had to do I was like wire wheeling them to get the like to buff them out, and like was like coming home at the end of the day to find like wires in my legs and like arms, and was like, I'm not making enough money to keep doing this, and I have way too much debt. So I through a friend, an old friend, I got a job at a like industrial construction company working in northern Canada, like middle of nowhere, where essentially you would go for 3 to 4 weeks at a time, like 4 hours away from the nearest like town or city, and yeah, would just labor for 12 hours a day for like 24 to 30 days straight. And you'd make like a lot of money, relatively speaking. Like
if you're working 12 hours a day, 12 days straight.
Yeah.
Or 28. Like if you're working that many hours for over a month.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I did that for a year. It was horrible. Like absolutely fucking, like I showed up. I didn't have the money to afford like winter boots. And my plan was like work for the next few weeks, buy all the boots. Because my parents were like, you kind of fucked up here. Like, we're just going to like cut off financial support. They hadn't been like giving me money
but they
or
tried
anything.
to help.
But they would help with
But
things.
they were
needed,
like, yeah, they were like, you already have construction boots. Because like in high school, that was what I would do from being like 12. I like the only jobs were construction. So like at 12, I did construction. At like 15 and 16. So they were like, just go, you'll be able to afford all your shit after. And ended up getting pneumonia on the first day because it was minus 40 and we had to stand in like melting water or melted water. In
minus 40 degrees.
Yeah, in minus 40. It's like, imagine like the reservoirs where they take all of the oil out of the oil sands, they refine it, and then they put it in tanks. Below those tanks has to be like containment set up. So they would excavate it, put down like essentially a rubber lining. So if any of them ever spill, you have this like multiple football sized indentation in the ground with thick rubber lining to catch all of the oil. But the problem with that is in the winter, it's covered in snow. So if you want to put material down like sand and then gravel at like varying grits to create a foundation for the tanks, you have to remove the snow. So we'd have to melt like 2 feet of snow across like a square kilometer or mile or something, or like across a huge surface. And then a team of 20 of us with brooms would push it into the corner where there was a pump. And so I did this for like 12 hours on my first day and was like sick and was like passing out essentially, like wasn't getting enough like oxygen, I guess. And had to like just like the instructions from my foreman were like, we're paying every day that you're here. This is your first like 2 days. If you don't go get better right now before like you're still in probation, we're just going to send you home. Cause we can't afford to pay the like $100 or whatever a day we're paying for someone that isn't working. And so he told me to go to the gym and sweat it out. So I literally just like went on to a treadmill.
But not even a sauna, just like,
yeah.
Like get your heart rate up and sweat this shit out.
Yeah.
Put garbage bags on kind of thing.
Well, and the doctor was like, you have like not great pneumonia. And like, he's like, it's, as you know, it's a ton of fluid in your lungs. So I was like, okay, so if I make myself breathe really hard and then I have a steaming like hot shower and I like do like a lot of deep breathing there, I might be able to like loosen this up. And so I just like ran like crazy to exhaustion and then went straight into a shower. And then like, this is disgusting. Like started like
all of it coming out,
gagging almost. And then I just coughed all of a sudden. And what looked like a tree's root system,
demons,
just of solid, like literally a single piece, just like splatted against the wall. And like, I don't know, like this big maybe with
exercise
like branches.
The demon out of your system.
Yeah. And I just like passed out after that for like 24 hours and was fine. Like just
and then you worked the rest of the winter.
And then I just worked the rest of the winter, saved all of my money, paid down a bunch of the loan, and then paid for the next year of university cash. And then when that ran out, and I went into like pre-med, like I was like, maybe I'll give that a shot again. Maybe I just needed like to develop more discipline, and actually take my time learning the science behind all of this. And then did that again at a different company, did a year of construction, year of university, funds were getting low then. So went back to Northern Canada at a different, better company, worked a year, and then left and paid for like the next year and a bit of university, and then just like ended up like finishing my degree as fast as possible. Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of like Connor's. I'm gonna grind out and make all this cash over a small amount of time, stock up a little, nest egg, work on my craft in the meantime. When that gets depleted, do it again. Like that's interesting theme with the Shillr.
Yeah,
the Shillr famous. It's a very similar story where it's like, I'm gonna go grind my ass off, make all this money, so I have a little bit to like give myself. How did you get out of construction and into like you went back to university?
Yeah, so I went to like a community college to do like an associate's degree. I was like, if I'm paying for this now, like, fuck paying a lot.
Fuck, I'm paying for it. Maybe we don't need you 50 grand a year.
Yeah, so I went
community college sounds cool.
Yeah, and I never applied to other schools when I went to Scotland. I literally just applied to like the 2 I wanted to go to there. Had no Canadian backups, so I didn't have like, you know, like I would have had to go through a much larger application process to get into like a better school and move cities. So I was like, I'm just gonna go here. It's great school, honestly, like better than the university I ended up finishing at. Finished like an associate's of like pre-med. That went pretty well. Found out there that I had moderate to severe ADHD, which made sense. I was like, this checks out. Then I changed degrees so many times, man. Like I was like, I'm going to do biopsychology. And took a couple psychology courses at the associates, met Mrs. Funghibull, Mila, there doing like, I did like research methods as an elective for some reason. Met her, started dating, and then I went to do biopsychology, said no to the bio side, went to do computer science psychology combined major. Was like, fuck, computer science is pretty hard. Like, and like it also was going to add like a year to my expected like finish date. And at that point I was like, I just need to finish this fucking thing.
I didn't get the damn degree.
I finished in like a science degree in psychology with like a focus on neuropsychology and consumer psychology. I just thought those were really interesting. I did a bunch of other cool like sensation and perception and drugs and psychology and stuff, and like which made sense. Of course. And then just like finished as fast as I could.
And then what was your like first job after that?
So while I was in university, a good friend of mine, really awesome dude, was like, hey, like, I don't know if you're looking for work, but my like marketing agency is like hiring and you'd probably do well. And so I started doing that while going to university and ended up, like doing quite well. Lucked into like the first day of this job was like, did like an orientation and then was going to like do some like studying or something for it later. As I'm walking down the street, I see people with like a conference thing with like a hashtag on it. And I was like, hey, what is that? And they're like, oh, it's the Digital Marketing Summit of Canada today. So the conference is just about to start. And I was like, oh, it's my first day as like a marketer.
I should go to the conference.
So I go in and they were like, tickets were like $3,500 or something.
Oh shit.
And I was like, hey, I'm a student. Like I literally just started a job in marketing. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Like, is there anything you could do? And this like really nice woman just gave me a conference pass. Like was just like, take this and like, don't talk to me
tell
again.
Anybody.
Yeah. And
you paid $3,500 for this.
Yeah. And I ended up just like consuming like for the next like 2 or 3 days, just like took like over 100 pages of notes.
Oh shit.
Was like
You're
going up and asking they had really like big name YouTubers and people who had crushed like direct to consumer marketing and like were running like at the time like really big or like really effective social media marketing and all of this stuff. And just like coming from like the psychology background where you like understand like how people think, like what drives behavior, with the consumer psychology, like how you appeal to things. It was like just kind of like made sense. And then, yeah, ended up like really enjoying marketing, and stuck with that agency for a bit. And then ended up getting like a more corporate job after that involved a bit more of like consulting. Did that for a couple of years, and did some private consulting on the side, and then found out about punks. Yeah.
How did you find out about punks?
So I had noticed trends like on TikTok, Instagram, like just the frequency of references about like digital assets or collectibles, and NFTs in like early 2020. It was like starting to notice like, oh, I heard about that last month. Oh, I saw that again
I keep
a
seeing
week
this
later.
shit. What is this?
And old friend of mine, one of the smartest guys I've like ever known in my life, I knew he was building in crypto. And he would like post on his socials every few months for years, like buy ETH. That would be like
Buy
his
ETH.
only post, like
Buy punks.
in like 20, like whatever, like really early on.
And you're following him on social media, and you've known him for years.
Yeah,
from
for
growing
years.
up.
And I was like, oh, I should see what he's up to. And he was, so the guy is Alex Gosman.
Yeah.
And he was building NFTX, finishing up his like kind of thesis he wrote with a couple of close friends on punks, which was like, I think the first like punks thesis, like big article. And yeah, I called him and just like, hey man, can I pick your brain on NFTs? Like, and he was so kind. It was like, yeah, for sure. Like answered every question. And it just made sense. I was like, all of my life feels increasingly digital. There's all of these friction points. Like I, had some physical collectibles, like was big into like trading cards and stuff as a kid, and like other forms of collectibles as a kid. And I was like, so many friction points with this. And like, we're increasingly valuing our digital presence, and connecting there more and expressing ourselves there more. Like maybe this isn't too crazy. And so, I threw like for me at the time was like pretty degenerate, or it was a reasonable amount of my like liquid money. Capital, that I probably should have been holding for like a house,
but this punk.
Yeah. And, and I was like still paying off like
punk.
Student loans too. And yeah, I like bought a couple of punks.
What did Mrs. Funghi think of this?
She was so for it.
Yeah.
Like,
she was just like,
she was like I told her the situation. She was like, I think this makes sense for you. Like, this sounds like exactly the kind of thing that you would do, like that you would invest in.
And so this was in 2020?
End of 2020, like last quarter of 2020.
like right before NFTX launched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, she was like, I think you should do it. Like, what else are you going to do with that money in the next like 2 years? And I was like, probably just try and add to it to like put towards a home. And she's like, well, fuck, like just run it.
Just run it.
And so, yeah, forever grateful for that. I was like probably going to do it, but was like, I had a moment of pause where I was like, it would really suck to just like
lose
burn
all this money on this fucking picture, this pixelated thing. Like,
and like, is this even real? Like, kind of like,
I can't even touch it.
Talk to like my one friend, like, is he so far down the rabbit hole? Cause
I know he's a big pothead, but maybe
he's just like ripping dabs, like building a protocol, like that I don't understand yet fully.
I'm in.
sounds good. And yeah. And then like noticed them start ripping in January.
Yeah.
And was like, oh, I should pay more attention to this. Like
Price is going up really fast.
this technology
It's improving
is looking
at a rapid
better
pace.
and better. And like, I'm not going to lie. It was like, for sure, just me looking at the floor price of punks being like,
It's doubled. What the fuck?
I guess
I might be a genius.
I'm a genius. Like,
Of course I
and
made the right investment.
yeah. And so I was like, I should make a Twitter account. I had never been on Twitter. Pick the name Funghibull, like just on the spot, which normally like anytime I've like been gaming, when I've had to pick like I don't know, like a character's name, always takes me hours. I was like, mushrooms, NFTs, Funghibull. Makes sense. Bullish. I'm bullish.
It ends in
on
both.
both. Yeah. And then quickly was like, how do I find a way to do my day job in the least amount of time possible?
Yes.
Because I was working mostly remote, and I started like cramming all of it into like 3 hours a day, 2.5 hours a day, and just spending all of the rest of my time just consuming information, tweeting out very redacted ideas, vibing, hopping in clubhouses, and was kind of still just like a big enjoyer. Was like really excited. Like was like learning more about like the tech and like the actual other applications, and like had exposure to crypto for a while, but like it was always just like casual. I was like, I'll just like buy a little bit here and there and like,
keep it in your Coinbase account, forget about it.
Yeah. And so I think I went to like an Accelerate Art event in Crypto Voxels that was Punk 4156's Ape Stage Capitalism exhibit. That
oh man, I'm getting flashbacks just hearing all those words put together into a sentence.
Yeah,
I don't even like see 4156 on the timeline anymore.
No,
my algorithm hates him.
Noums are trending to 0. Yeah. Nick Tamino.
He still posts. I still see his. Like I look him up every once in a while just to be like, is he still around? He's still posting.
His name is still Punk 4156.
Yeah, but I just never see him on my timeline anymore.
Interesting. That Voxels exhibit, I remember it was like 3 or 4 stories.
Yeah.
And it was all of his X copies.
Yeah. Well, it was all of his X copies. And then he also like, I think commissioned art sort of.
That were his apes.
Like reimagined his ape, and like some incredible artists. Like I discovered so many artists from that. Botfrula, discovered Nicole Ruggiero and Plant Daddy, and tons of others. Like kind of discovered Claire through that too. Claire Silver. And yeah, I remember just like I'd like, you know, been to a lot of museums, a decent amount of like art galleries as a kid and whatever, and living in Scotland and going to like Europe on super cheap trips. Like it was easy to go check this stuff out. And being in that Crypto Voxels exhibit, I think you were there. I think like, I think I have a screenshot of your like custom
Punk with the nipples,
with giant nipples.
Yep.
And I was just like enjoying and like trying to be helpful because they had auctions and stuff going. So it was like, feel like it'd be helpful if I like screenshotted like the scene and like posted it and then linked the art that's for sale, like because the artists are too busy and Claire and Ben are too busy, and ended up forming like a good friendship with them. And yeah, but overall like the exhibit was on par at least with everything else I'd ever done.
Bunch of good art there.
Yeah, amazing art. You're hearing directly from the artists on Clubhouse.
I think that build might still be live in Voxels.
I think it is.
I don't think it was ever taken down. I'd have to go check. It's kind of like a historical world that has been left behind in CV as time has gone on.
Yeah, R.I.P. CV.
I mean, I bought a waterfront plot in Rome, 5 ETH. I was like, wow, this is going to age like fine wine. I mean,
might come back.
This is going to be like buying a house in Malibu in the 60s.
It might.
I wouldn't bet on it.
But dude, yeah. And then like 4156 had never spoken publicly before. And then Matt Fury because one of the pieces was
Feels good, man.
his Feels Good Man.
Yeah.
That he just Chad bought for
420
420 ETH when like the previous bid was like 350 or something like that. Like,
It's a wild time. I mean,
Yeah,
that
different time.
He also 4156 has enough money. He could afford the
money
media.
grew on trees back then.
Yeah.
I could just go to go into the Punks Discord, shake the money tree, and be like, "Oh, 5 ETH." Like,
Totally.
then now it's way different.
Yeah.
So you're in CV. You have the Punks. Do you remember the first piece of art you bought?
Yeah. So all of my, like, I told myself, like, I'm not going to spend any more money on NFTs
Than what you put in the Punks.
than what I put in the Punks. So I'm going to wait until they run like hard, and then I'll sell one and then use that to like take profits, obviously, be responsible, but then use it to also trade. So at the time, I think I was really just buying like art on Tezos.
Yeah,
So a
'cause
lot
it's
of
cheap.
those artists like Jan,
Xerox.
yeah, like I think it was Jan was the first artist that I was like, oh, I love your art, can't afford it on mainnet ETH. I'm just gonna buy pieces as they come out on Hicketnunk. And yeah, and so that was like the first art I collected. And then when I sold one of the Punks, I bought a Twin Flames the same day. I'd been watching it for ages and had chatted with Justin. And yeah, collected one of those and a Plant Daddy piece called Dormant. And those were like the first. I think I like sold the Punk, had a moment of just like, holy fuck.
That's real money in my
That's
account.
real. And
It's been 6 months.
yeah, stood on the balcony and just like looked out at the ocean.
The
And,
world's
like,
my oyster.
yeah, I was like, that was
It's
a
like the
big deal.
Lion's King. Like, looking over
My
a
Punk. He throws the Punk out into the
Yeah.
crowd.
And yeah, and so that was the first art I picked up.
Do you, like when you went from first of all, I gotta ask with the Twin Flames, did you sell the Twin Flames or do you still have it?
I sold it. So I bought it at like, I've been watching them from like 1 ETH running up, and I think I got it for 12.
Yeah, that's good.
And I told myself, like, because I was trying to be like, I was honestly probably way better at trading then because I was much like harder and faster about
You had like
profits and stuff.
goals and you're trying to
Yeah,
get
and I
money
was
for you
like,
and Mila.
I'm still like living in a small apartment and like, you know, like this is all very new. I need to like not fuck it all up.
not go back to construction.
And so, and I was still working my like day job, and we had like just started Shillr as well. And so I told myself, like, if I can sell this for, I think I held it for like, I don't know, what felt like forever at the time. It was like 2 months. Maybe.
Well, it feels like
That's an
forever.
eternity in crypto.
Yeah.
But then when the price goes up a lot, it feels like it's even more forever because you're like, I bought that for 12 and now it's 50.
yeah.
I bought that for 12 and now it's, holy shit, is that 100?
Yeah. So I think I like, the plan was like, list it for 24. If it sells, take profits, and then quit my job.
24 was like, if I get this amount.
Yeah,
I'm
I was like,
comfy.
that's like, because I had already like banked a decent amount.
And you had Shillr you were
yeah,
building.
and it was just taking shape. Like, I don't even know if we had a client yet. And I was like, this is what I want to do. Because from that exhibit of Accelerate Art, I was like, oh, this is the most interesting ecosystem kind of industry I've ever seen. People are connecting frictionlessly, directly with each other. Artists are connecting with collectors. People are finding ways to create models that make sense financially to like support both artists directly and do larger things. These collectible projects are ripping. Like, some of them seem actually really cool. This concept of the metaverse feels imminent. at least in the span of like 5 years, I need to find a way to like work here. And yeah, and then so that's when I decided to look for a job. And then eventually just saw a random tweet from like a guy I was following at the time, didn't really know, who's like, hey, does anyone want to start like a Web3 marketing consulting company?
Wait, who tweeted that?
Rugema.
Okay.
So yeah, he tweeted that, and within 48 hours, we had like, I came up with a name, we came up with the logo, had our website, had a team Discord, and like kind of like a vision paper of like who we want to work with, what we want to do in this space. And yeah, we had like the bare bones of what we need.
Did Bernardo, Rugema, and TP all just see that tweet and respond? Oh,
Yeah.
obviously Rugema wrote it, but like how did because there's what, 4 or 5 co-founders?
There originally was like 7 who joined this Discord.
Gotcha.
One of them just didn't do anything.
Classic.
And so just like
The school project. Kid
got like kicked essentially. It was like, hey, like
You gotta do something.
there's no point in having you here. And then there were 6 of us, and 2 have gone on to do other things, and now there's 4 of us.
Gotcha.
Me, Rugema, Bernardo, and TP. And yeah, and then I think POAP was like the first company we worked with.
Shout out Patricia.
Yeah, shout out
Patricio's
Patricia.
the man.
Yeah.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, very good dude. The whole team's really nice. And they were like super down with a fun idea we came up with. We were like, NFT NYC is coming up. What if we do a treasure hunt? Like, haven't seen anyone do an NFT treasure hunt IRL before. What if we make like a rough map of the city? We get sponsors to come in, give out prizes, and we put these QR codes in these locations. Each one will represent a sponsor, have their branding. So you tap or scan, claim a POAP. Each one acts as a raffle, and then we'll do raffles for the prizes that the sponsors have donated at the end. One of them was like a chromie squiggle.
Nice prize.
Nice prize. I think they were like an ETH and a half at the time. But yeah, still very nice prize. And that's how we ended up doing our like mobile galleries. Because we were like, what if we put our QR code on the back of a moving van? And we were like, that'll be fun. Like, that's kind of different. And we're like, well, let's maybe put art on the van. And then ended up exhibiting like 100 artists from like a tweet. It was like, drop your art. And Connor Grasso from the team, I think we just hired him to help make that video.
For the first Shillr
Yeah.
van.
And we just like cranked it all out in like 3 days. And yeah, but yeah, it was like a crazy start to a company for
It's
me.
a very Web3 way to start a company. You put out a tweet and you're like, hey, I'm good at this. Anyone else good at this want to do it? And then you're like in a Discord coming up with a name and a logo in 48 hours.
Yeah. And like everyone, like I went full time first because
Yeah.
I sold the Twin Flames, bought another for less than I sold
Chad.
my first 4. And then quit my job and just started going hard. But the rest of the team took like, I think like a couple months, like I think 2 to 3 months before they locked in. Yeah.
It's tough to make that commitment. I mean,
Yeah, especially because you guys didn't raise any outside money or anything when you started, did you?
No, like it's kind of like, yeah, we didn't raise money. We had offers in the first 2 weeks of our Twitter existing. We had like people wanting to invest because we were the first, like, as far as I know, we were like, the whole point of Shillr was to be the first transparent Web3 marketing consulting company where we'd always disclose everyone that we worked for, had any affiliation with, and we would just like only pick great teams to work with that we as individuals would feel good supporting.
it's like
without
you're
a
wearing the
contract.
merch hoodie right now. if you weren't collaborating with merch, you would still want to buy the clothing when it comes out.
100%.
And yeah.
Exactly.
And it's like you only want to work with people who you want to support their product regardless if you work or not.
Totally. Yeah. So we had a lot of offers of people that wanted to invest, like pretty big check sizes, like, but we were like, the bull run's just kind of like, we're like a third into it, maybe a quarter, like would kind of suck to like give up a bunch of equity and then find out that like, we're great at this.
You didn't need the money in the first place.
Yeah. And like, I didn't need the money. And then I got us one client, and it was an NFT collection. And really like, yeah, awesome project, like still a big fan. The non-fungible fungi. And then I think another contract. And cause I had the most time, I just like did the work and was like, hey guys, if I, instead of like taking this money all for myself, which they had all kind of said like, hey dude, like you can, if you want, like
you're doing all the work.
You're doing all the work on this, like not feeling super fair. And I was like, well, if I split it evenly with all of you, will you quit your jobs? Like, yeah, yes or no. And they said yes. So I just like these two contracts, we just split like 6 ways. And that was enough for them to just like quit and have like
some runway,
a solid runway where they could go back or they could pivot or whatever. And that was kind of like our like, I don't know, like raise essentially. Like, yeah.
Got some good contracts in a bull market.
It's definitely nice to be in a position where you guys own all of the equity in the company, where you're not beholden to anyone, and like,
yeah, that
you
really
can really
stressed
do whatever
me
you
out.
want.
Yeah. I was kind of worried about that. I was like, that would be nice. Like we could scale quickly, but if people are telling us who to work for and with, like that might kind of fuck us. Like, I don't know. There's definitely times in the bear market I was like, maybe I was an idiot for like not accepting millions of dollars. But overall, very happy.
Do you think that going through the bear market, not raising, and then getting to a point where the bull is starting to come back or is back, like you feel like that was the right move now in
100%.
hindsight? Like, yeah,
absolutely. Like there was definitely like, cause we were turning down, we've like historically turned down like 90+% of all inbound that we've got. And we've never done any outbound. Like it's always
inbound,
which is kind of cool. Cause like our joking rule is like our one rule at Shillr is we do not Shillr, like unless asked, like unless someone's like, tell me more, then we'll tap in. But like, so that was going well. Bear market hits, number of inbound leads drops off, but number of quality leads ramps up. And that was also like really encouraging just as a participant and like, you know, numerous bag holder, in the space being like
watching all the bags go down,
the bags go down, but then being like, okay, like I have not like, probably not inside information, but just like, I don't have to dig and look to see who's building or who's raising or who's whatever.
Because they're telling you.
Because they're telling me like, hey, we're like closing our round right now. We want to work with you. This is and like the quality level was just like way higher on average.
Just like really high signal conversations.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, okay, like it might be less like profitable, like lower frequency contracts, but really great teams that like we were stoked to work with, like which had continued from, you know, the bull run was that too, but it was also like dealing with so many like, hey, like we're dropping poop emoji NFT collection tomorrow and like we'll give you 10% of the sales if you say
We're gonna
yes.
make $10 million when we sell out. You get $1 million in
And
48
like a lot
hours.
of them,
All you gotta do is just tweet about poop tokens 7 times.
yeah, and like
put a poop emoji in your
Bring
Twitter
us on a
handle.
space.
yeah, like fart sounds on your space, and like
Fart sound.
we'll give you an
Toilet
extra grand.
flushing.
Yeah, and like, but like we'd get hit up by lots of those teams, and a lot that were like better, but like we doubted their motives, but knew it'd be easy money, and we were like, yeah, like it's not. If all of the founders didn't agree to work with a company, we didn't do it.
That's how it works. So it was like you need unanimous.
Yeah, we could convince each other and like make a case. Like it wouldn't. If someone was like no, and like
Why?
half of the team, or we'd have to chat it out. And luckily, it was just like we've had like really good like team
vibes. Yeah.
vibes. Yeah,
Very well aligned on.
yeah. Like Mila said recently, like you are so fucking lucky. Like, do you realize like how crazy it is that like your 3 co-founders that are still on the team, like you guys get along so well. Like you've never argued. You've like butted heads plenty of times, but you're all comfortable saying like, that's a shitty idea, which I need a lot of. Like I come up with some wild ones for us. And they're really quick to be like, that's terrible.
You need that though.
But they're also quick to be like, let's run it. Like, I think this has legs.
Yep. We got to talk about Let's Run It with the open editions.
Keep going. I need to pee.
Yeah.
But you can ask him this question. I'll jump back in.
We're at NFT NYC. You got a big 3-day thing coming up over the next few days. Had a presenting title sponsor pull out in the last couple minutes. Like, what, 2 weeks, 10 days? Not much time.
Not a lot of time.
Not a lot of time. And you had to figure out a way of like, hey, here's a, 50 grand hole or whatever that we got to plug that just got rugged on us. How do we do this in a way that feels genuine and gives back to the community, but like also doesn't completely rug us? And then you came up with this crazy idea, which I thought worked super well. With the open editions and using Base and Arbitrum as unofficial sponsors, and then having like a community incentive to free mint multiples to get their community as the like title sponsor. How did you come up with this? Like, I'm assuming it kind of went something like this. You get a text or email from the presenting sponsor that says, hey, we're pulling out. Sorry. You have a moment of, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck. And then what happens after?
I'll answer in one moment. We'll be right back.
All right. So you're in the lab creating this open edition idea. How did this come together? You did this in like one day?
Pretty quick. Yeah. So, like realized we were like out massively on a couple of, it was more than one sponsor too. So it was like,
just
it was like a couple, one being the main one. And it's like fair enough. Like the shit happens. Right. But we were in like a not great spot. And I was like, okay, as you said, like, how can we find a creative way to fund this? There's like a couple of big teams we know, but the event's in like 2 weeks or a week and a half. And the approval process, even if you're going through like foundations or whatever, is like long. And like sometimes there's lockups.
There's a DAO vote.
Yeah, it's like
you gotta lock up the tokens for a
you
year.
gotta set a proposal, and if your formatting's wrong, you're fucked. And like, and it also like just didn't like I hate asking for money. Like, it's funny, like with Shillr, like I love helping other people connect with who they should connect with, like the people that would just want to know but don't, because algorithms limit who we can find and what we can learn about. But I hate asking for things for us. And so I was like, it's like, I don't even want to try and like ask one of these protocols or something for money last minute. Like, just doesn't feel fun. And I literally just saw the Jesse Pollock tweet of like, just build it. And I had like been looking into like retroactive public goods funding. And I think all of us fucking had after like the
After that $30 million.
That last airdrop, I was talking to Benji from Optimism. I'm like, should I be like doing something with the pod and like have you guys on and then apply for this? Because you guys are giving 17 different Bankless subsidiaries 500 grand.
Yeah,
Like,
Bankless Zimbabwe is up.
they're
Like,
cooking, man. So you see that and you're like, okay.
yeah, and then I saw like, if you're on Farcaster, you've probably seen like Pearl,
Yes.
which is like typically pitting like two similar people or companies like against each other in like kind of a fun way, maybe a little more degenerate than I would do, but it's like, you know, whoever gets the most likes tomorrow on a single post, either, you know, Thread Guy or Leap or something, like, who do you think is going to get the most? And then you like bet your like points. And if you win, then you get points. And I was like, okay, maybe there's like a hybrid of this where instead of retroactive public goods funding, I just use the protocols to give them a sponsorship instead of asking them for money, which there was like some interest, but it was like probably not going to work. So I just thought like, I'm spending so much time on L2s these days. I'm collecting more art on Base. I've been collecting art on Arbitrum for ages since we helped Prohibition with their launch. And it just makes sense, like, especially for a lot of things, for like art and a lot of like social layers. Like it makes so much sense. And gaming, what if I just position this as like a friendly competition of like Arbitrum versus Base, two ecosystems that have very based Chad like figureheads, like Jesse and Brian, size Chad, Chad. Yeah, and like Sobi as well, and so like, well, how do we do that? Like, okay, well, maybe like a meme would work. Not going to do a token because that's like a ERC20 because, yeah, that's super messy. What if we just make it like, well, no. And like, yeah. And so what if we just like release an open edition on either L2 and whichever one gets the most gets the sponsorship spot. And I'll ask Zora and whoever else where we might deploy these, hey, would you be down to pass over your protocol fee? And we'll do X and Y, like with you guys. And we'll use your platform for this as well. And they were down, like Zora was super down, Manifold was super down, Floor app was super down. And so I had, if you've seen our like Shillr sponsorship, or not like partner posters, I made that graphic, the background image in Midjourney, and I was looking at it and I was like, man, imagine if like Jesse Pollock and Brian Armstrong were depicted as based King Kongs climbing the skyscraper, and then on all of the billboards there was just these like subtle little references to base and like the super chain, and then we did the same concept but with Arbitrum and size chat as size Kong, and so I like pitched this idea and I told the team, I was like, hey guys, like I know we're fine, like we can pay for this, but it's like a large bill. Like it's a lot. And like,
it's not what we want to do.
No. And even for the sponsors that we are working with that are paying, like I know what people charge for events. And we were like, hey, we just like want to make it like what we think is actually fair. And it's our first event series. So like, let's keep those like small, those like checks or whatever. Maybe a stupid thing, but it felt like asking them to trust us to like do something cool with them at our event series. The team, I thought they would shoot it down. They were all super open to it. It was like whichever chain hits 25K mints first, we'll pick an artist from that chain. We'll last minute fly them to New York, give them, pay for their hotel, exhibit their art, and if they're down, record a little interview with them. And regardless of like who wins, like we will set aside time to do additional exhibitions for both Arbitrum and Base. And so there's no like loser. Like none of these teams or foundations are giving us money.
They can't complain.
Yeah. And thankfully you were like, you should probably ask Jesse and Size Chad.
Yeah, I know I can text Size Chad and be like, hey, is this cool with you? And then it's good when you get the green light of the guy that you're going to make a King Kong.
Yeah.
It's like, are you cool with that? And of course, Peter was like, fuck yeah, I'm cool with that. Like, that sounds awesome.
So yeah, that was what I did first before hitting up artists. I was like, got confirmation from Jesse, from Size Chad through you, tapped in with people at Zora. D was super helpful. And Zach was super helpful, and checked in with Floor, and also like we've worked a bunch with Manifold and like wanted to make them a part of it. Like our event series is called like The Garden, kind of imagining like the on-chain culture garden and what it might look like in physical space. And so it kind of felt right to like include more teams in it. And then, I just started like fucking pitching artists, dude. Like I was in Beeple's DMs. I DM'd Claire Silver,
Everybody.
DM'd like, cause I was like, for this to like, this has the potential to like really rip. It's kind of like a tough like criteria. Like you need to get an artist who has like who has like released work on that chain, or is exploring L2s actively. And you also need an artist who has like a bit of a platform. Cause if it goes really well, then we can pick an artist who like can't necessarily afford to go to New York. And we can exhibit the works of a bunch of other artists by doing these like additional exhibitions. So, I like hit up so many DMs, pretty much like no's across the board.
You're like, hey, I need this in 3 days.
Yeah. Die was down.
He made one.
Dude, he made one. And it was like, and I didn't realize it was his birthday weekend. And he was like,
he's on mushrooms at horse racing. They make his size call.
Just in the lab, like, Four Loko in one hand, like iPad, pencil in the other. And, but his like just needed a little bit of like additional sauce with like some like company placement and stuff. And he was like, man, like I fucking can't. And like, I've been working on a very like significant something for a while. And like, I think this might be a little like bit of a, I don't know, not good time for me. And, Jan said yes to do the based version. He did a piece called New Base City, which like fucking slaps. And then I reached out to 3 artists to see if they could do the Arbitrum edition. And they ended up all saying yes at the same time. And I was like, oh fuck, I don't want to now. And a couple of them were like, I've started drafting this. So I was like, oh, like, well, I can't tell you to stop now. Like, what if we do 2? So Goat Cloak, creator of Goons, like the artist, pivoted to Arbitrum.
Shout out.
He pivoted to Base.
And then
Anton Marast did Size Square, which was amazing. Like, he did that in like 24 hours.
Dude, the We Do a Little bench.
Dude, that that sauce there, the Zorb as a water tower in the distance, the Rug Radio like on a little scaffold billboard, like Zai Games as like a little like statue like installation.
The Rug Radio one reminded me of like the Daily Bugle from Spider-Man, where it's like that old style building with the architecture and then just the logo right up front.
Yeah.
It was like, oh yeah.
And then I called, so I messaged Danny Cole from Creature World because he did an edition on Arbitrum with Size Chat, like literally like 1 year ago. And I was like, okay, well, it makes sense to ask you. And they all ended up within the same hour, like getting back to me. So yeah, we did a Jan piece on base, New Base City, Creature World, Arbitrum piece that launched at the same time as Jan's, called Size World, Anton Maras piece, Size Square, and then the other base piece was Based Kong 64 by Goat Cloak, which had like a very different vibe. But like super sick, like looked like I'd see it on like an arcade machine,
yeah,
you know,
like a retro.
Yeah. And, they all finished like bangers in like 24 hours. And then we released them and like, it ended up doing really well. Like Arbitrum's got a big disadvantage because you can't mint with warps on Farcaster, whereas the base
you could just click it.
Yeah, and then we had an issue with the manifold. I think Farcaster actually like was experiencing a warp minting issue maybe when we released Goat Cloak's piece.
Oh, the second.
Yeah, so but like Jan's piece, they all did very well. Like Goat Cloak, like they were all in the thousands, and with Jan's piece
20.
hitting like 22. So
how many in total were minted of the 4?
In total, the first day was like across the 2 chains, it was like 20, I think it was 21K or just shy of 21K for Jan's, like 7K for the Creature World one on Arb. And then it was like the other 2 were like an additional 6K or something. Because I think the warp issue, which that did a lot. And also like base co-marketed without, I never asked them for anything.
Jesse's the man with that stuff. He will just, if you're tweeting cool stuff about base, he will retweet it. He's on it.
He's dialed in.
Yeah. And they like featured it as their, daily mint thing, like mission on Galaxy.
Galaxy.
Yeah. And I didn't ask them to do that. And so like, I could see there was like 1,000 people that minted just to get their mission points. And then the Farcaster mints ripped. So the last 2, like, Anton's piece really crushed it. Flora hooked it up by, last minute, like making Arb mints on Zora functional in the Floor apps. You could mint on Apple Pay. And yeah, it ended up like we didn't hit our 25K goal for like
a single chain.
Yeah, for a single
cumulatively.
chain. But we were like, yeah, I asked the team after and they're like, we got to fucking fly someone out. Yeah. Like we can't not. And so we actually just last night, cause I didn't want to like, we try not to do, like we've intentionally never done stuff that's been super minimal with stuff that's like follow us and retweet or something. Yeah. And I didn't want to turn this like artist fly out, like artist paid trip into like tell us why you love Shillr and retweet and like fucking
like, comment, retweet, follow all 4 co-founders.
Yeah, tag 10 friends. Yeah. And
subscribe to our premium.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so I thought this was genius. I put one tweet out that was like, because base won, so we were gonna pick an artist who's been minting on base. So I put a tweet out of like, hey, like, if you've minted on base, like, let me know below, link the piece, and we'll pick some to exhibit at our venue, which we're doing. And then the next day I put a tweet out, or like, the next morning I put a tweet out of like, hey, who has art that is being exhibited, but who isn't attending? Like, I'll make a note, and anyone reading this, make a note. And if you see their art, take a photo, and which I like usually do at these events, and a lot of people do. And then I just imagined those as a Venn diagram, and it was like the people who commented in both. Those are people who have work being exhibited here, who have minted on base, but who aren't going. And at like 10 p.m. last night, Buna like manually filled out the center of the Venn diagram, and we hit someone up, and they were like, yeah, I'm not going because like I just moved, and like, I don't know, had just had a ton of expenses and was down. So they've booked their flights. We've just like sent them the money. And I didn't want to handle like the operations of like, send me your full name and whatever. And like,
here's the money. Please come. Please don't.
Flight, $600, hotel, 200 a night, $300 a night, whatever. Here.
Well, I was like, because we said we'd give you $5,000.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, I honestly don't give a shit if like you get a train or like drive here.
You can hitchhike here for
you can hitchhike.
Start walking.
You could do whatever. Like, it's just way easier for us to just give you this full amount, and if you want to use it all on like 3 days in New York, like have at her. Like, if you want to like fucking like stay at a friend's and whatever, like that's cool too.
Sure.
Like, as long as you can show proof that you're coming.
Yeah.
And they did.
Come to dinner on Friday.
Yeah, exactly. And so they're coming and bringing their partner as well, which is cool. They're like, is it cool if like we both use this to like fly out? And I was like, yeah, for sure.
Only you can use it.
For sure. Like, just as long as like it covers it. Like, yeah.
Yeah. We're not gonna give you more, but like,
yeah.
I mean, that's great, man.
That's a fun story. Yeah.
I feel like you're always trying to give back, and whenever you do, it's kind of a theme that I've noticed the last like 3 years. If you find a way to win, you're like, okay, how can I help like someone else win too? It's like not super fun to win by yourself and then not help anybody else win.
Yeah. Yeah. I just like, I got so lucky to be here. Like, made just well-timed plays, worked out pretty well. And like, I also like the one really obvious thing about crypto, like long-term crypto stuff, is that the people who do the best are providing the most value. So like, whether it's a protocol that just slaps, that everyone's like, of course I'm going to use this, you know, or it's a company that is like acting, you know, as they should with the long-term in mind, with people in mind, they do better. And in life, that's kind of the case, you know? So it's like, it is like selfish in a way, because I want to make something great here.
It's like you put good things in the world, you know the karma will come back to you in some way, but you don't know what it looks like.
And it feels good, man. Like,
it's great.
like, yeah.
Feels good, man.
Yeah.
We have a question we ask everybody, getting close, I think, to the top of the hour.
Yeah, I think it's probably a good time to start wrapping up.
I think you know this question. I don't know if you've thought about it. If you were to write an autobiography, what would the title of it be? And you can't say Peach Vibe Celsius.
I think that's the exact same flavor of Celsius
that Rhetoric had. Yeah.
I've never had a Celsius.
I tried Peach Vibe. I slandered it on the timeline. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It doesn't work for everyone. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is choose your own adventure. Yeah.
I already know what that piece looks like in my head. You're at a fork in the road in a forest and you have to pick left or right.
Yeah. I just feel like the one thing maybe harder to feel in an embodied way when you're like in peak depression or something, or like very whatever. But even when I get really stressed out, like, I've always been confident that there's always a solution. And it's just a matter of creativity and thinking differently, and like maybe moving the board around. So yeah, I feel like there's all, I don't know, like my life's just felt like a choose your own adventure book. Yeah.
Dude, I love that. Well, this has been a vibe. I feel like I learned a lot about you that I had no idea about. I'm glad we got to go deep into the background, because I feel like we don't talk about that a lot on Twitter Spaces, whatnot.
Yeah.
And then people come back and listen to this, and it's like, oh, here's like kind of the Funghi origin story of going from, a year in Scotland, vibing maybe a little too heavy, not taking studies too seriously, to like little construction wake up call.
Construction.
Did the mushroom ego death wake up call is a very real thing.
Yeah.
And I like sharing those experiences with people, because like not everybody's ready for that type of experience, but like everybody I know who's had that experience has come out the other end positive. It may have not felt positive in the moment when laptops are going into drywall and you're leaving the house and coming back, but like you're able to look back in hindsight with the idea that like, oh, that pivoted some important things in my life.
Totally.
And I just appreciate you sharing all that, man.
Oh, thanks for having me, man.
Is there anything you want to shill before we get out of here? Because granted, it'll probably be like a couple months before anyone sees this. But.
We have 7 episodes in the current season coming out, and then this will come out after.
Yeah, I don't think so. Like
Shillr.
Yeah,
if you're a company in crypto and you need someone to shill your stuff, DM this man.
Yes.
Yeah,
because he will not reach out to you. He's made that clear.
Inbound only.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, no, feel free to hit us up. I think we've worked across like every vertical.
What's the email?
Far.
info@shillr.xyz.
Literally info@shillr.xyz.
Yep, let's go.
Yeah.
Wrap it up. info@shillr.xyz. Thank you.